After the confrontation with Emily, things began to settle down at the office. Sarah and James were no longer hiding their relationship, and the other employees had come to accept them as a couple. They continued to work together, each supporting the other in their respective roles. One evening, after a long day at work, James and Sarah sat together in his office, enjoying a quiet moment alone. James looked at her with admiration and love in his eyes. "I have something I want to tell you, Sarah," he said, his voice softer than usual. She turned to him, her curiosity piqued. "What is it, James?" He took her hand in his thumb gently brushing over her knuckles. "I've never met anyone like you. You've shown me what real love is, love that's not about money, status, or what I can do for you. It's just about being together and being ourselves." Sarah felt her heart swell at his words. "You've shown me the same thing," she replied. "I've never cared about what you have or what you can offer. It's your heart, James. That's what matters to me." James smiled, his heart full. "I love you, Sarah. I've always loved you. And I want you to know that no matter what happens, I will always stand by you." Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she smiled back at him. "I love you too, James. I've never been more certain of anything in my life." The two embraced, their connection deepening in that quiet, intimate moment. For the first time in a long while, James felt truly at peace. He had found the love he had always been searching for, and it was real. It was Sarah. As James and Sarah's relationship continued to flourish, the time came for James to bring Sarah home to meet his family. He had always known that this moment would be difficult. His father, Chief Jonathan, was a man of great influence, and he had always expected James to marry someone from a certain class. But James was determined. He had already made up his mind, and Sarah was the woman he wanted to spend his life with. He wasn't about to let anyone's expectations dictate his happiness. When Sarah arrived at the mansion, she was understandably nervous. She had always admired Chief Jonathan from afar, but now she would be meeting him face to face. James reassured her, telling her to be herself. He had no doubt that his father would see what he saw in her. As they entered the grand living room, Chief Jonathan stood up, his eyes scanning Sarah with quiet scrutiny. After a long moment, he smiled warmly. "Welcome, my dear," he said, his voice deep and rich with authority. "I've heard so much about you." Sarah smiled, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. "Thank you, sir. It's an honor to meet you." Chief Jonathan nodded, still studying her. "I see why James loves you. You're grounded, respectful, and full of kindness. That's rare in this world." James couldn't help but grin. "I told you, Dad," Chief Jonathan chuckled softly. "You have my blessing, son. I've always known you would find someone special, and I can see now that you have." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she looked at James. She had always dreamed of being accepted, but never had she imagined that it would be this easy. She had found the man she loved, and now she had his family's approval. With Chief Jonathan's blessing, James and Sarah began to plan their future together. They knew that there would still be challenges ahead, but they were ready to face them together. They had already overcome so much, and now that their love had been validated, they felt unstoppable. As they sat together in James's office one afternoon, discussing plans for the future, Sarah looked at him with a soft smile. "I can't believe we're finally here, James. We've come so far." James reached for her hand, his voice full of conviction. "We're just getting started, Sarah. I promise you, there's nothing I won't do for you. This is just the beginning of the rest of our lives." And with that, they both knew that they had everything they ever needed: love, respect, and a future that was bright with promise. It wasn't long before James made his intentions clear to everyone. He had already introduced Sarah to his family, and the time had come for him to make her his official partner. The engagement was small and intimate, with only close family and friends present. James had asked Sarah to marry him in a quiet moment at the same park where they had shared so many of their important conversations. The night was perfect. As they stood under the stars, James took Sarah's hand and looked deeply into her eyes. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," he said, his voice full of emotion. "Will you marry me, Sarah?" Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I will marry you." The sound of applause erupted around them as their friends and family, who had gathered nearby, cheered for the happy couple. It was a moment that marked the beginning of their next chapter that would be filled with love, challenges, and growth. The wedding was everything they had dreamed of, simple, yet elegant. The ceremony was filled with laughter, love, and the warmth of family. As James and Sarah exchanged their vows, promising to support each other through all of life's challenges, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. And as they stood together, hands intertwined, looking toward the future, they both knew that they had found something rare and beautiful. A love that was true. A love that would carry them through whatever came their way. James and Sarah settled into married life with ease. They began building their future together, working alongside Chief Jonathan at the company and making plans for their own branch of the family business. But as their careers flourished, their personal lives blossomed as well. They talked about having children, creating a home filled with love, and working together to build a legacy that would last for generations. Emily, still harboring bitterness, eventually left the company. She found herself moving from one failed relationship to another, never able to shake the resentment she felt for Sarah. James had made his choice, and Emily had nothing left to fight for. Meanwhile, Sarah and James built a life grounded in love, respect, and the understanding that they would face whatever came their way together. It was a journey of growth, love, and endless possibilities. It didn't take long for their dreams to become reality. Sarah was pregnant, and they were overjoyed by the news. The announcement came just a few months after their wedding, and the entire family was ecstatic. Chief Jonathan, always proud of his son, was beside himself with excitement at the news that he would soon be a grandfather. James could barely contain his joy. His love for Sarah had only deepened since their marriage, and now they were about to bring new life into the world together. One evening, as they were sitting at the dinner table, Sarah looked across at James, her hand resting on her growing belly. "Can you believe this, James?" she asked, her voice full of wonder. "We're going to be parents." James smiled, his heart full. "It still feels like a dream. I'm just so grateful for you, for everything we've built together. And now, we're going to start this new chapter." The joy they shared in that moment was palpable. They both knew that becoming parents would change everything, but they were ready. Together, they had already faced countless challenges, and now they would face parenthood with the same strength and love that had always guided them. As Sarah's pregnancy progressed, James became more and more protective of her. He made sure that she was comfortable, helping her with every little thing, from making sure she ate healthy to ensuring she got enough rest. He knew that Sarah was strong, but he also knew that carrying their child was no small feat. They spent evenings together talking about their future, sharing dreams of what kind of parents they wanted to be. Sarah wanted to be a mother who instilled kindness and compassion in their children, while James was determined to be a father who would always be present for them, no matter how busy his work life became. The anticipation of their baby's arrival filled the air. Every day seemed like a step closer to the future they had always dreamed of. They had already created a life of love and respect, and now they were about to create a family that would be built on those same values. The day Sarah went into labor, James was beside himself with excitement and nerves. He had never felt this way before. They had prepared for the birth of their child, but nothing could truly prepare them for the overwhelming emotions of the moment. The labor was long, but Sarah handled it with strength and grace. James was there every step of the way, holding her hand and reassuring her. When their baby finally arrived, a beautiful baby girl, the joy they felt was indescribable. James couldn't stop smiling as he held their daughter for the first time. Sarah looked at him, tears streaming down her face. "She's perfect, James." The love they felt in that moment was beyond anything they had ever experienced. They had created life together, and their hearts were overflowing with happiness. The first few months of parenthood were filled with sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and more joy than they could have ever imagined. James and Sarah worked as a team, balancing their responsibilities at work with the demands of being new parents. Every day felt like a new adventure, and their love for their daughter grew with every passing moment. As their daughter grew, so did their bond. They watched her reach milestones: her first smile, her first step, her first words, and they cherished every moment. They knew that they had created something special, something that would carry their love forward into the future. Despite the challenges of parenthood, they remained strong together. They knew that the love they shared was the foundation of their family, and nothing could shake that. As James and Sarah settled into their new roles as parents, they began to think more seriously about their future. They had already built a successful life together, but now they wanted to ensure that their daughter would have the opportunities they never had. They wanted to create a legacy for her, one that would provide her with the best of everything. James continued to work at the company, now taking on a more prominent role in the business. He was determined to make the company even more successful, not just for his father, but for his daughter. He wanted to be a father who could provide for his family, who could give them everything they needed without ever having to worry. Meanwhile, Sarah focused on raising their daughter. She made sure that their home was filled with love, laughter, and warmth. Every decision she made was with her daughter's best interests at heart. She knew that parenthood would require sacrifices, but she was ready for whatever came their way. As James and Sarah worked to build a future for their family, they began to realize the importance of the legacy they were creating. They wanted to instill in their daughter the same values that had been passed down to James' values of hard work, kindness, and humility. James took on more responsibilities at Jonathan Enterprises, ensuring that the company's future was secured. He knew that one day his daughter would take over, and he wanted to ensure that she had the tools she needed to succeed. But more than anything, he wanted her to know that the greatest legacy he could leave her was not wealth, but the love and respect they had built as a family. As time went on, James began to groom his daughter for the future. He took her to work with him whenever he could, teaching her about the business and the importance of integrity. Sarah, too, was there to guide her, showing her the importance of being kind and compassionate to everyone, no matter their status in life. Together, James and Sarah worked to ensure that their daughter would be prepared for whatever the future held. They wanted her to be confident, capable, and, most importantly, to know that the most important thing in life was love. As James and Sarah looked toward the future, they knew that their journey was far from over. They had created a life filled with love, respect, and happiness, and they were ready for whatever came next. With their daughter by their side, they knew that they could face anything that the world had to offer. They had already overcome so many challenges, but together, they had built a foundation that would last a lifetime. Their love, their family, and their future were all intertwined, and nothing could ever take that away. Years later, as they sat together watching their daughter graduate from university, James and Sarah reflected on their journey. They had come so far from the days of uncertainty and struggle. Their love had grown stronger with each passing year, and now they were watching their daughter step into the world as a confident, kind, and capable young woman. As they looked at each other, James smiled and took Sarah's hand. "We did it, Sarah. We built something beautiful." Sarah squeezed his hand and smiled back. "We did, and we did it together." With that, they looked toward the future, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it as a family, united by love and the strength they had built together. As James and Sarah watched their daughter embark on her own journey, the responsibility of the family legacy began to weigh heavily on James. The company, now flourishing under his leadership, was ready to be passed down to the next generation. But James knew that it wasn't just about business, it was about instilling the values of love, integrity, and humility into his daughter. "Do you think she's ready?" James asked Sarah one evening as they sat in their study, the weight of the question hanging between them. "I think she is," Sarah replied softly. "But it's not about the business. It's about her heart. She's kind, compassionate, and hardworking. Those are the qualities that will make her a great leader." James nodded, his mind racing with the challenges ahead. He had always been prepared for the business side of things, but raising a child with the values he and Sarah held dear had been a much greater challenge. They had done their best to provide their daughter with love, respect, and the wisdom of their experiences. "Whatever happens," James said, "we've already given her the most important thing, her love and our guidance." Despite James and Sarah's careful planning, the road ahead wasn't as smooth as they had hoped. The business world, like life, was filled with challenges that tested their resolve. Jonathan Enterprises had become a significant player in the industry, attracting attention from competitors who sought to undermine their progress. One particular company, Brighton Tech, had been making aggressive moves in the market, seeking to outpace Jonathan Enterprises with a new technology that threatened to overshadow their own developments. James and his team worked around the clock to stay ahead, and Sarah was right there with him, providing support at home and offering counsel during moments of uncertainty. But the pressure was mounting, and James found himself facing the most difficult decisions of his career. "You're not alone in this," Sarah reminded him one night, after a particularly long day at the office. "We're in this together. You've always been the heart of this family, and that's what matters." As the days passed, James realized that the key to overcoming these obstacles wasn't just about outpacing the competition, it was about staying true to his values and his family. Sarah had always been his rock, and with her by his side, he knew they could weather any storm. But now, he was determined to bring those same values into the heart of Jonathan Enterprises. "Sarah," he said one evening, his tone serious, "I've been thinking. We need to prioritize our family values in everything we do. The company is important, but it should never come before what really matters: our love, our integrity, and our legacy." Sarah smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "I couldn't agree more. Let's ensure that Jonathan Enterprises reflects the heart and soul of our family. Let's teach the next generation that business isn't just about profit, it's about people." Together, they began to implement changes within the company, making sure that every decision was aligned with their principles. They focused on ethical business practices, caring for their employees, and creating opportunities for those in need. As James and Sarah worked together to bring their family values into the business, they began to mentor their daughter in ways they never had before. She had graduated from university and was now preparing to step into a leadership role in the company. "I want you to take everything we've taught you," James said one evening as they sat at the dinner table, "and use it to guide the future of Jonathan Enterprises. Remember, it's not just about what you do, about how you make people feel." Their daughter, now a young woman ready to take on the world, nodded thoughtfully. "I've learned so much from both of you," she said, "and I promise I will uphold the values you've instilled in me. Family comes first, always." Sarah smiled warmly, proud of the young woman their daughter had become. "We believe in you, and we know you'll continue our legacy with love and grace." It was clear that the next chapter of their family's journey was about to begin. With their daughter ready to take on the challenges of the business world, James and Sarah knew their hard work and love would be carried forward for generations to come. As the years went by, Jonathan Enterprises flourished under the leadership of the next generation. Sarah and James had set the foundation for a company that wasn't just about making money, it was about making a difference. Their daughter, with the wisdom they had passed on to her, took the company to new heights, always guided by the principles of kindness, respect, and love that had shaped her parents' lives. As James and Sarah watched their daughter confidently lead the company, they couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of pride. They had built something that would last, a legacy not just of business success, but of love and integrity. "Do you remember when we first started this journey?" James asked Sarah one quiet evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset. "I do," Sarah replied with a smile. "We've come a long way. I'm so glad we've done this together," he said. "And I'm even more proud of what our daughter has become. She's everything we could have hoped for and more." Sarah reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "Our family is our greatest achievement, and that's all that matters." As they sat together, reflecting on their journey, James and Sarah realized that they had achieved more than they had ever dreamed of. The love they had built together had been the foundation for everything else: their success, their family, and their legacy. With their daughter now in charge of Jonathan Enterprises, they found themselves able to take a step back, enjoying the fruits of their labor. They spent more time traveling, experiencing new cultures, and savoring the quiet moments they had so often put aside in the rush of their careers. Their love was stronger than ever, and they knew that the legacy they had built together would continue to inspire generations to come. As James and Sarah looked toward the future, they were filled with gratitude for the life they had built together. They had faced challenges and obstacles, but they had always emerged stronger, united by their love and the values they held dear. And as they watched their daughter take the reins of Jonathan Enterprises, they knew that the future was in good hands. Their legacy would live on, not just in the business, but in the love and integrity that had been passed down to the next generation. As the years passed, Sarah and James found themselves stepping further into the background of Jonathan Enterprises, watching their daughter take charge with a steady hand. Jonathan Enterprises had grown into a beacon of success and integrity, and it was clear that their daughter was ready to lead the company into the future. James couldn't help but feel a sense of pride as he watched his daughter navigate the complexities of the business world with grace and intelligence. He and Sarah had always known she was special, but seeing her in action solidified their belief that their legacy was in good hands. "Look at her," Sarah said one evening as they watched their daughter give a speech at the company's annual meeting. "She's amazing." James smiled. "She is. I'm proud of everything she's accomplished, and I'm even more proud of what she stands for." "Do you ever think about the legacy we've built?" Sarah asked, her voice soft but full of meaning. "All the time," James replied. "But what we've created isn't just about business. It's about the love we've shared, the family we've built, and the way we've lived our lives." As James and Sarah watched their daughter take the reins of the company, they felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had passed on not just wealth, but values that would carry their family and the company forward for generations to come. One quiet evening, as James and Sarah sat on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, they reflected on the journey they had taken together. It had been a long and sometimes difficult road, but they had faced it hand in hand. Through the highs and the lows, they had always been there for each other. "Do you remember when we first started this journey?" James asked. Sarah smiled softly. "I remember. We had no idea where it would take us, but we knew we had each other." "And we had love," James added, taking her hand in his. "That was our foundation, and it still is." "Love and family," Sarah said. "That's what has always mattered most." As they sat together, the quiet moments of their life together seemed to stretch out before them, endless and full of promise. They had built something lasting not just in business, but in the heart of their family. The foundation of love they had created would live on, and they both knew that whatever the future held, it would be bright. With their daughter now at the helm of Jonathan Enterprises, James and Sarah were content knowing that their legacy was secure. They had built a company based on love, integrity, and respect, and they had raised a daughter who embodied those same values. Now, it was her turn to carry the torch. James and Sarah began to travel more, visiting places they had always dreamed of seeing. They explored new cultures, deepened their connection with one another, and made new memories that would last a lifetime. Their relationship had always been built on mutual respect, and that respect had only grown stronger over the years. Even though they were no longer in the forefront of the business, their love for one another remained their greatest accomplishment. They had always known that family came first, and as they watched their daughter lead Jonathan Enterprises to new heights, they knew they had given her the tools to succeed. Their story had come full circle. They had faced challenges, endured hardships, and celebrated victories, but through it all, their love for each other and their family had remained unwavering. They had created a legacy that would last long after they were gone. As they looked to the future, James and Sarah knew that their love would continue to guide their family for generations to come. The legacy lives on. Years passed, and the next generation of the Jonathan Enterprises family carried the torch forward. James and Sarah were now grandparents, watching their children and grandchildren grow with the same love and values they had instilled in their own lives. The company continued to thrive, with new leaders taking the helm, but the foundation of love and integrity remained strong. At family gatherings, James and Sarah would sit together, looking around at their children, grandchildren, and extended family. They had built something more than just wealth. They had built a legacy of love, respect, and a strong sense of family that would continue for generations. Jonathan Enterprises had become more than a business. It had become a symbol of what true success looked like, not just in financial terms, but in the way a family had supported one another and built something meaningful together. As James and Sarah sat side by side, watching their family grow, they knew that their legacy would live on in the hearts and minds of their loved ones. Their love, their journey, and their family would never be forgotten. Did you learn anything from this story? Let me know in the comments section. Tell me everything you learned from this story. Please leave your answers and join the conversation below in the comments section. If you enjoyed watching and listening to this story, then click on that like button and subscribe to this channel now so that you can see more of my interesting stories and folktales. Thank you so much for watching this video to this very end. Click on any of the video links above to watch more of my interesting stories on this channel.